Hi, everyone. I wanted to talk today a little bit about the 3D density, dimension, energy that we've been charging through. I spoke a little bit about it on a quick intuitive message on my Instagram and Facebook that had come through to me as a download, but I've been meaning to talk a little bit about this and like what is this energy that we're really working ourselves through? How did it get here? Um, and obviously, if this resonates with you, then great. And if it doesn't, then it's not your truth, and that's all. That's fine. But I want to talk a little bit about where I feel intuitively, my own truth, what it actually is, and what we're actually doing here. So, um, you know, hundreds of thousands of years ago, the human race began on this earth. And as you know, if you follow me, I'm a big, not fan, but I'm a believer that we're all spiritual beings who decided to have a human experience on this earth plane. So, um, originally what happened was we came down here to have a human experience, and now we're the spiritual magnificence that has now come down and been placed in a piece of our magnificence has been placed in this physical body. So now all of a sudden we've been boxed into a physical body, but it also gives us an opportunity to have a physical experience. And in doing so, we also decided to forget who we are really, and all of what we've done before. I believe in past lives and in the fact that we're infinite beings who continue forever. So when we come down to a physical life, we have a beginning and an end, and we live a life now where we know we have an end, where there is a point where our physical bodies will die, and we are having a different type of experience. We are now able to physically touch with skin and bones, and we're able to interact with other souls in physical bodies. So there's things that are joyful for us that we would enjoy doing in a physical state, and there's things that we would not enjoy, and there's suffering, and there's so many different things as we know as humans that we all go through that we're now able to experience. So coming onto this earth plane, we're now given this playground, and we have this beautiful earth that we're living on. We now have to physically eat to sustain ourselves. We have to physically move and exercise and just move ourselves so we keep our bodies healthy. And we're also put into this place where there's all of a sudden time, where time doesn't truly exist outside of this realm. But now we have time where we have only so much time that we have a life to live, right? Since we know our human body does not last forever. And we also are dealing with our human body changing, our physical body changing as time rolls on. So there's the aging process. And that also puts a whole new dynamic in play. So when we come down here originally, as the beginnings of of humanity on Earth, we're given this playground, and we forget who we truly are, where we came from, and we start playing. And as we go through, we start learning different things by experiencing, right? So like a child who is initially just touching and feeling things, and all of a sudden they are attracted to, that figurine on the shelf, and oh, no, 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 that's not the right thing. So they learn from other human beings, their parents at first, their parents and guardians at first, on what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, what they're supposed to do, what they're not supposed to do, and hopefully why, but not always why, right? So we come down here and we start playing with things, and we learn from experience. We learn what hurts, what helps, um, what sustains us, brings us joy. And as we start to evolve, we also learn that we can get things from each other. And, long story short is we there are reasons why the society has evolved into what it is, because we realize that with the limitations of the physical body and with the limitations of time, there's a thing called fear. And fear will get us to act, react, or do things in certain ways, because if we are afraid of something, all of a sudden we can close in, we can stop, we cannot feel so free. And as we start to learn this from a human perspective, the ones who got it, there's a power that could be played there, and in having power, we can have over others, and having power, we can get wealth, we can get abundance in many different ways. We can get what we enjoy, knowing that the fear we're placing out is not real, but if we get others to believe it, then they will act in certain ways and conform to certain things, so that they start living in a certain way, and I get what I want, right? So in the beginnings, when this started to be seen and felt, I don't even know if it was malicious at first or what, but obviously through time there's been very malicious things that have happened. But when we start playing that and putting fear into the masses, it's easier to control them, and it's easier to keep them a certain way, and it's easier to expand the power and the wealth of whoever is not in that mass collective, right? So you see it in religions, you see it in old governments. You see it even in the story of Atlantis, if you were to believe what is said about it, that that the control got out of hand and they end up being destroyed. So we can look at it in so many different ways, but it really does make a lot of sense as far as if you're living in a generation where fear is put into place to control, and then it becomes these people's beliefs that they're being told the truth from something that's fear-based, they start to live their lives around that, because we have a limited lifetime. And we are created in a way where we want to live, right? We have a survival instinct. So when you have generations and generations going through this, and each new generation is just brought up within a conditioning, a society that believes a certain thing, and they may not even know where it came from, they just believe it to be the truth, then this is how we start to live. And it evolves over time. And anything based in fear or anger or judgment is a lower vibration. So when we base full government systems, full religious systems on a fear base, we continued to add on top of each other and lower the vibration, lower the vibration. So we are now at a point where we are dealing with energies that are supporting us from a universal standpoint, that are supporting us to be able to lift out of this. But we are dealing with thousands of years of lowering the vibration. And all of us were born into this vibration. So the only way that it changes is as the collective can become a higher vibration. And the only way that happens is that pieces and parts of it start to see through the fear bases and the the even, I don't like to say evil, but there has been evil on this earth. I don't believe that innately anybody is evil, but we do choose, we have free choice to go any which way as far as what we want to be as a human being here, as a soul on earth. So I don't think there's as much evil right now because we have been lifting the collective up. We have been lifting the vibration up. And it only needs to be a small portion of the actual true collective that could lift up. So just like, you have heat come in the wintertime and it rises. So if you have a second story, all of a sudden the second story is so hot and you don't even have the heat on, and the first story is kind of cool, and you're like, why does this keep pumping out? And yet it's still cool in here because it rises, because it rises up above, and that's what happens as things vibrate on a higher level. They move above. It's like oil and water and how they separate. So right now we're in a collective where we have this heavy, dense, fear-based energy that we are trying to push ourselves up out of. And right now we have two timelines happening at the same time, and we're kind of have a foot in each one, because there's the pieces of us who are very aware of this higher vibration, and then there's the ones who are in the lower vibration who have no awareness to energy at all. But it doesn't mean that they aren't vibrating differently at different times. So they may have no consciousness to it, but it doesn't mean that they're not adjusting along with the collective. As we become aware of it, so those of us who are more aware of it, we can see the differences. We can see the places where, love would be the highest vibration. So when you see, someone who's not aware of energy, when they see something extremely loving, their whole demeanor will change. They will feel differently. Their emotions will change. And when you see something extremely fearful, when there's something that would put you in a place where you would fear for your own life or your family's life, for example, which would be the most extreme, you would be put into a different emotional state. And those different emotional states are in different vibrations. So the more of us who can balance ourselves to a point where we can see the fear for what it is, see when things are being projected or given to us, when we could look at it and say, is this coming from a place of fear? Is this coming from a place of love? Then we can decide and choose on our own how we would respond to it. Our innate being and our habits would have us react to it. So if somebody comes at us in an angry or aggressive manner, we might react immediately, right? Because that's our subconscious self and our beliefs that are saying, I'm going to react right now, I'm going to deal with this. But if we could take a step back and say, what is actually being projected at me right here? If it is dangerous, that's one thing. But if it truly isn't, and it's really words or energy that's coming at you in an aggressive manner, can we see it for what it really is? Can we see it for where it's coming from and the fact that it does not actually affect us? It would only affect us if we were to go down to that vibration and be in the same fear state. If we were to stay in a higher vibration and see that what they're saying or sending our way is actually meaningless to us, that's where we change the energy. Excuse me. So when we're in an interaction with another human being, and we could say, and they react in a certain way out of a belief or an expectation, and you can, instead of defending yourself immediately, you can take a moment and see where it's coming from and respond in a loving way or in a different way. You can actually change the energy of that whole interaction, and that goes into the collective. That energy is in the collective. Now that person can stay, that situation, that person can stay in that state, but if you don't meet them there, you're not joining. And you could stay in your state. And they can be repelled by you because they just cannot get to that same state as you, and that's okay. So that's where we need to stop struggling between ourselves to try to get everyone to come up, or for those who are down in the lower energies, for them to pull everyone back down into it. You know, and that's where we get to make that choice for ourselves. And just by being the vibration that you are putting that into the collective. So we don't, it feels very overwhelming sometimes, like I have to change it, it has to happen. And of course, from a human standpoint, we don't have patience because, like I mentioned in the beginning, we are in a time state. We only have so much time. Our lives feel so short. So we want to get everything accomplished yesterday. But there is a timeline. There is and we can change that timeline to a large extent, but there's still a amount of time, especially over the thousands of years that we've dealt with this energy and built it up, is going to be some time for us to really alchemize and transmute this energy into higher states. So at this point, through 2020, this year really is for us to really get ourselves settled in how we're going to move forward through this next century. Because honestly, I see it as and what I've been given is that it's this year is really a test. It was really a test. We agreed to have this COVID happen. It's a boost to us to be able to move more quickly into new vibrations and new densities, new frequencies. But it was a test for us to see how well we can handle these things, and also to see how well we can see through everything we've been given and fed and learned before, and see how we could as a collective handle things coming to the surface that we didn't know were there, and how we can handle our own selves and what we need. We were so wrapped up in this rat race of how the world worked, we hardly stopped to even know what to make for dinner, let alone to sit here and say what is truly important. If everything else was taken away, what is truly important? And for so many of us, it's like, well, we could say that all the time, we could talk about it, but it was never going to happen. I mean, we're in a modern world. How could any of this ever happen? But then all of a sudden, millions of people have no jobs and are displaced, and life as we know it has changed and turned upside down completely. So where from all this, if we took everything away, what is left? And that is what this year was really about, was going and figuring out what's left is our soul, right? And obviously there's relationships and there's people and there's other souls who are very important to us. And for each of us, it's all going to be a little bit different for what we really see as what is needed in life. But the general sense is the fact that you have you, and who are you? Because a lot of us didn't know. We were so caught up in this race that we never sat down to say, what do I really want? I have to go to school. I have to get a job. I have to make money. I have to put food on my table. But therefore, because I have to do it in the way that society had us set up to do. There's a few, there's people who take risks and there's people who do things, but usually you need money to do things. But even if you don't, there are some people, few and far between, who make it really big. All these things were happening for us. We all believed all these things because that's the society we were in and the conditionings we were under. So now, for us to strip all that away and stop and look deeper and say, I have this life that isn't that long on this earth. Why am I doing all this stuff that just doesn't align with me? So 2020 to me was a time for all of us to get into a closer state with our core selves and our souls and it's a continuous process. There's been a lot of awakenings this year, and awakenings can, can mean so many different things, but awakenings could be, I never realized how bad that job was. That's an awakening when you finally have that realization. It's like when you see somebody in a relationship and it's not right for them, but you can't, you could tell them, but does it matter if you tell them? Until they see it, until they have that awakening that it's not the right thing, it doesn't matter what you say, right? So right now, this year, it was all about us getting to this place where we can move forward through this next generation, this next 10 years, that this next decade, that is going to change so much more quickly than we've ever seen before. Change the frequencies, change society, change the world, and change humanity, really. But there's going to be a lot of work to do, and there's going to be a lot of things that could seem scary. There's going to be a lot of pull between the old, denser frequency and the higher frequency. The higher frequency will always win, right? It always rises up to the top. But it's going to be your choice to make as far as if you stay or get pulled back down into that lower frequency or not, or if you're going to be able to stay above it. And, again, it shouldn't be a struggle for you. There's going to be moments where we go back down. I mean, we live in it, right? So, and the other thing is, even if you're living on a higher frequency, you have to be aware of everything that's happening on all frequencies, because otherwise you're just escaping. And you can't escape. We're here for a reason. We came down here at this time for a purpose and for a reason. So we cannot escape it as much as we want to. Okay? We're here to do whatever our purpose is. And personally, I think the whole purpose is for all of us to see our magnificence, to be able to understand that we're really these magnificent souls and energy that have so much more power than we ever give ourselves credit for. But each of us has a unique purpose right now. Somebody's a teacher, and that is their purpose. And then as a mother or a father, that could be your purpose, because you're making a difference in others' lives in the way that feels home to you. Okay? And somebody else, it could be politics, and some people have to do some of that real 3D lower frequency work right now, and some of us don't. Some of us don't have to be out there as activists, protesting, but there is a place for people who that is their place. So it's been very interesting, to say the least, as far as what's been happening, because there's so much of this, you have to be this one way. And each one of us is a puzzle piece that will make the whole puzzle. So we need to give people the freedom to be who they are. And in order to do that, you first need to know who you are. Because you only project, or we only project to others, what we have within ourselves. So anytime we feel that something's not feeling right within us, then we need to look in and figure out what that is. And we could feel overwhelmed right now, like there's so much going on in the world, I have to get out there, I have to do this, I have to do that, because we think that's the way to save the world, is the only way is to actually do something, like actively, physically. But when you're working on yourself, when you're figuring out yourself, that is action and energy. And energy is everything, although we haven't realized it fully as a society yet. We have to remember that a lot of stuff was hidden through the densities of the frequency that we were put under, because it was known thousands of years ago. But when certain energies wanted to keep power or control, they can add frequencies on top and fear-based narratives that would hide it and hide it and layer it and layer it. And a lot of what we truly are is being hidden from us. So our our job is to now get to the point where we realize who we are again. And this is where this is going as far as the next 10 years at least. It's a continuous process, like I said. So I hope this was a little bit helpful as far as understanding how this heavy, heavy density and, is upon us. And the fact that the entire collective is not going to all of a sudden flip a switch and change. That it's definitely a work in progress, and that it begins with us each individually within ourselves, realizing our core selves, and as I always say, living our truth. And once we could start doing that, then each person's truth might be different, but if we start to live in our heart selves from a place of divine guidance, we are divine. If we are able to do that, then all of a sudden we'll collectively work in ways where we assist each other in living this human experience, but we'll all have the joy and the freedom to be who we are at our cores.